This episode is brought to you by Cellular Performance Institute. Is your body beat up and broken down? Look into stem cells today. It could change your life. Go to cellularperformanceinstitute.com. Join Sam Tripoli and I for Tinfoil Hat Comedy, April 10th in Tacoma, June 13th in Cleveland, June 14th in Pittsburgh, August 1st, Connecticut, August 2nd, Boston. Get your tickets at samtripoli.com. See ya. I can't believe I won.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Look Into It. Tonight, we're going deep into DMT with independent researcher Danny Goler. What's up?
How you doing, brother? So good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, man. You know, your red light DMT code thing is spreading like wildfire. I mean, everybody's talking about it. And how did you first get into that? What made you want to flash a red light on the wall while you were on DMT? How did that happen?
I think like many psychonauts, I was doing these things since I was a little kid, since I was like 11. And when the more experience I got with it, the more it became clear that there's no way this is just in my head. So at a certain point, I was just like, wait a second, this is crazy. Like, no, there's no way this is just happening all in my head. And then I said, okay, but how can we prove that? Like, is there a way to prove that?
Now, how old were you when you first did DMT, and what influenced you to do DMT?
DMT I did relatively later in life. It was in 2010 was the first time I think that I did it. Actually, funny enough, which is kind of because there's a lot of people online talking about DMT, but the thing that got me really interested in it, it's this old Joe rant from a radio show in Ohio. It was way before he had the show, and it was like this. When just Joe goes off, and he just goes off on this 10-minute tangent about DMT, and I was like, "What the fuck is that? I need to know what that is." And that's what I mean, I was already into psychedelics, but I've never heard of that before. And so for me, to ask me like, what does it do? For me, I don't know. I think it's the only substance that you can do that really puts the question mark on, wait a second, is this everything there is? Like, that's the only one that truly does that. Like, mushrooms are crazy, acid can be crazy, and weed, whatever, but it always feels more like slight departures from like whatever this is, right? DMT feels like, holy shit, like this is different. Like, this is different. Like, it feels more real than this. So in that sense, I think it opened the window for me, considering that maybe there is really more.
Yeah, man. I first did DMT with Joe and Jan Irvin. He was the one who supplied it for us. We did it all in a big group. This was like 2001, 2002, something like that. And the reason I was interested is I saw a documentary called Shamans of the Amazon, and it was about a guy with his wife, his pregnant wife. They go into the Amazon to film a documentary on shamans. And then they got introduced to ayahuasca. They did ayahuasca, and the documentary is awesome. And I'm like, fuck, I want to do that shit. It's called Shamans of the Amazon. It was done in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And, since then I was like, damn, I'm into it. And then I had a friend who had done DMT, and she had told me, listen, the stuff that's in ayahuasca is DMT. That's the stuff that blows your mind up. And so I talked to Joe about it. We watched the documentary. I actually watched the documentary with Joe. And then when it was time to do DMT, I was scared as fuck. I was really scared, a lot of fear. So when I did it, we all did it one at a time. We were like watching each other and making sure we didn't freak out. I freaked out the first time. I was too scared. I saw all this crazy light show, but there was like this yellow feminine presence. It was like some feminine yellow room, and every time I had a sense of fear, the entity would just try to slap it out of me. It was weird. And I had this crazy light show. It's insane. And but I wanted it to feel what other people were talking about when they did it. That they saw they there was like entities that they talked to, and it was like a monumental, life changing event. But here I was in this crazy room with these crazy lights, and I was scared as fuck. So when I woke up and I just started screaming. I was like, ah.
Oh, I remember you said that. You said on
I
the
was screaming.
on
I
the show.
threw
You
up.
said I
I
was
was
screaming.
yeah. I was on the ground. I was on all fours and I was screaming, and everyone was freaking out. And I looked over at Joe, and I was screaming not because I was scared. I was screaming because like I was just releasing like it was like a good scream. It was weird. It was like
Yeah.
I was like ah, and I looked over at Joe and I'm like ah, I'm like, yo, I'm okay, I'm okay. And then I just started screaming again, ah, threw up and everything. And then after that, I realized that I'm not scared. Let's do it again. So we waited a while, maybe a half hour, maybe an hour, and I did it again. And then boom, I went through that room. I went right through it because I had no fear. And I'm sure it had to do with your frequency. Like if you had the frequency of fear, like that was preventing you from going to the other side. So
Mm.
once I changed my frequency, I was physically able to go into this. It was like I was floating in space, and there was like these Power Rangers. It was weird. It was, and it was all love, and there was this gigantic black serpent alien thing that like wrapped around me, and I was like, oh shit. But it wasn't scary. It was like there was like love there or something. And then boom, I wake up, and I did it a few more times after that. And like the last time I did it was probably 2016 or something. And when I did it, I went through the same thing, saw the same Power Rangers in space, and but it was weird because it was like I was they were going through the motions. It was like they were telling me telepathically to to just don't do this again. You've already done it. You don't need to do it anymore. Because basically from the first time I did it, I realized that there was more to life. There was some kind of creator. There was some kind of God. It got me back into God. Like there's a creator. Someone created this. I didn't create this. I'm just like tuned into it. I'm not, I can't draw with the shit. There's no way I could have created the stuff that I was seeing. So it got me on my path to God. And so the last time I did it, I saw the same shit. I don't know if I just programmed myself because I talked about the story so much, and maybe I just programmed that. It was the exact same thing, except the entities. We were going through the motions. It was the same thing, but they were again telling me telepathically, "You don't need to do this anymore. You already know that there's a God. You already know that there's a creator. You're gonna have this forever. You need to appreciate your time on Earth." That's the message I got. That's the feeling I got. So I've never done it again, and I never planned on doing it again. But I might do it again to see the code. So I might do it again. Though I'm interested.
Why not?
That might pull me back.
All
So
right.
tell me about your first DMT experience.
So the first one was actually I couldn't make it work in the beginning, which is I was so set up to do it, and and you probably smoked it just like me, like the old way, in a crack pipe, in a or a vaporizer, and you just it's powder and it's so harsh, it's so hard to smoke. It's not like today that you have like vape pens and stuff. It's like I always say it's like smoking glass, and you just like it burns your lips, it burns your throat. And I tried like 10 times and nothing happened. And I was like, dude, this is so excruciating. I really want to experience this.
You didn't. Nothing happened. Like there was no visuals at
Nothing.
all.
And I think it has something to do with like, well, also probably the amount of that I always like cough out a bunch of it out because I'm not a smoker. So it's like, it was very difficult to get it
That's
inside.
probably what it was because to do the proper amount to go under because DMT when you go into it you pass out basically for like 10 minutes like you're out
Yeah, you're
you
out.
got to be on a couch and you just pass out you're not awake you like die for 10 minutes so I found that you need to take 3 big dragon inhalations like 2 3 big ones and on the third one when you exhale all that smoke, you're just like, see ya. It's like that. But when you guys are doing, when you're checking out the code with the red lasers and all that, you have to be awake, so you can't do three. What do you guys do? Like
No,
one big one?
yeah, you don't need much. You need like you don't need to launch or anything like this. You see it right on the surface of DMT. Now,
Oh,
yeah, it's true that it's not really the same for everybody, and it is a bit of a problem for people who don't, this margin of kind of sliding into hyperspace and being here. For some people, that space is smaller. So like for them, they're either here or they're there, and that's it. There's no like in between. For other people, there's a space in the middle. There's a gray area where you kind of like here, but things are happening. That's where you want to aim. That's basically where you want to aim. And actually, again, this is kind of funny because in that rant that I was mentioning by Joe, there's this one line that kept on repeating itself in my mind when I was trying it for the first time, which is that he goes, "It's not that you think you're in another dimension, you are in another dimension." And I was like, okay, whatever that is, I need to know what that is. And I kept on trying because of that line. And I was like, dude, and eventually when it finally worked, I was like, you know, I think what I was doing, even though I was very open-minded, I was actually pinning down reality. Like I was holding it down. Like I was holding everything down. It's almost like your brain says, no, 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 I know what this is. No, I know what this is. And then the second you let it, then you don't need that much DMT. You can just do a tiny bit. If you just allow, if you just let go, you don't need that much, and it would still take you because you allow it. You're not trying to hold it back. With the red laser, you really don't need much. It's just that in the beginning, sometimes it takes some people a moment to see it, which we don't know why yet. We're trying to figure it out. But it's a one-way street. So the second you see it, you can't unsee it. And one thing to say is that the reason that it's such a big deal and people respond this way to it, it's because it does not look like a psychedelic visual at all. It just looks like a regular, well, regular is a stretch, but it looks like a normal, some kind of, it's almost like you're looking through a microscope. Like you're looking at something through a microscope through a window and you're seeing a whole new world that you've never seen before. But it doesn't have this quality of like, you're in hyperspace and all this amazing, crazy shit is happening. No, it's just, it looks like an organic tapestry made from these like tiny, tiny letters that we call the code of reality. We don't really know what it is, obviously. And it's kind of like it moves and has the characters, they change and they move along three different axes along these balls and columns, and also they kind of switch in their spot, kind of like that. You can see it very clearly. That's the thing that really gets. I don't know if you saw Chase Hughes' response, but that's basically spot on.
yes.
So Chase is welcome to the family.
It's good to be here. This is so bizarre. So initially I thought it would be lots of just clean, equally, perfectly spaced lines of code, like the way that I was imagining it.
Yeah.
And then looking at it, even I can see it now, some. And none of it makes any sense. And if it was a hallucination, it would move.
When you move, you mean? Like when you move, it will move with you. Is what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it would morph, is what I mean. It could morph over time. And these are like object permanent. And I can see stuff in that direction, and I can move this way, and I can see in that direction. Like I'm looking beyond this little thing right here. And it's just weird. And it's even weirder that we can see it with our eye, that there's no microscope here. There's no large hadron collider. We could just like shine a laser on a wall and there's some stuff inside.
But you have to bring your consciousness to a different state.
Yeah.
Which actually tells you something very big about what consciousness is. There's a continuum there.
Yeah.
It's not just what it is. There's there's gradation of it.
Yeah, you get to that state and it's just...
I think you nailed it with saying that it's weird. Like there's something very bizarre about it. It's like you don't expect to ever see this in your lifetime.
Yeah.
It's not something you ever expect to happen to you.
Yeah. And it's not, your brain isn't ready for it. And like when I saw it, the first 10 seconds is, this is a suggestion. I've gotten primed to see this stuff. And then I saw the same characters that you saw, identical
But
characters.
it's not just the content. Would you agree that there's something about the way that it appears that makes it clear? You don't need a research grant. Like for you, when you see it, you're like, oh, it's like it is there. Like it's not. No matter how much I told you, it doesn't. Like it's just there. Like,
it's there.
Yeah.
It's plain as day. You can see it, and it's permanent. So like if I move my head down, I can't see him right now anymore. I'm not really back in that state of consciousness right now. But moving my head down, I can see up. Like there's code back behind here and above it, and there's code back down. And it's almost, for me, it's like I'm looking at something that's on the wall and behind the wall at the exact same time. So it's like later on the wall and 5 feet behind it. So, and then when I try to look up, I can look up, and none of the numbers move or morph or change like we would think, like with a hallucination. Like anytime you hallucinate anything, you're going to have changes start to occur. They're going to have morphology. You're going to have, because anything that's hallucinogenic, the drug progresses. So I'm going to go through stages of this and stages of that. So things are going to change, but this is constant. And it stays in the same place. And it's as clear as day. There's no like, oh, you need to squint, you need to imagine it, you need to like work on your visualization skills a little bit more, and then like someone's whispering in your ear that, oh, imagine that, what if you could see characters in there? And just kind of suggesting these things to you. There's none of that happening. And I'm a pretty skeptical dude. And this is 100% easy to do. You don't need a microscope, you don't need an MRI, you don't need a research grant, you don't need $1 million to perform this thing. And there's no hardcore parameters. Like, you throw it on a tripod and it's on a wall beside you. Like, there's nothing fancy about this. And this can be duplicated so easily. For me to profess that I know what the F is going on right there,
No,
I have none. I have no idea. So if you're watching this, I'm a scientist, no idea what that is, but it is written in there. There is 100%, there's code inside of that. And it's not Japanese, it's not English, it's not ones and zeros like I thought it would be, like binary code. It's something else, and it's there. And what's amazing is that it doesn't matter if you move the laser. So like, if I'm looking at that map over there, and I'm looking at a hill on that map, and somebody shines a flashlight on that map, you can still see the map. You're just seeing different pieces of the map. And that's exactly what it's like. So when Danny was moving this laser up and down, I was just seeing higher code that was up here and then code down here, just like someone shining a flashlight on it. So it was object permanent. And it was locked in place of like where it is for the most part. There were a few moving parts, some little things that looked like they were like gears, almost like a gear that you would see inside of maybe a cell or something like that. So you know what this reminds me of? The movie Contact, where like there's this weird signal, and eventually if you evolve to a place where you can put this like circus ride thing together with a steel ball with a human in it, then it allows you to transport. But this is like something like, if we kind of are able to figure out what the hell this is, there may be some formulaic structure to it that we can start predicting.
Do you think you have enough in you to do a part of that speech from from Contact? Because you look exactly like her dad in the movie.
This is how it's been done for millions of years. And you're an interesting species, an interesting mix. You're capable of such beautiful dreams and such horrible nightmares. And in all of our searching, the only thing that we found that makes this worthwhile is each other.
Take me to, you're doing DMT, it's not working. And then,
Oh, I mean, it's a long story, but the shortest version.
yeah, we got all day.
All
Tell the
right.
whole story.
All right. I mean, we're talking about like a 10-year span, right? More than that.
Of doing DMT. No, you started doing DMT, but it wasn't working for you. Then,
Well, yeah, and I don't remember exactly at that point because it was a long time. It was like 15 years ago, but there was eventually a moment. There was quite a few times. I would say about 10, and then finally I do it, and well, everything that people know. Like I'm propelled to this space, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden, the first entity I've ever seen was this guy, and he was fully cloaked, so he kind of looked like like the Grand Ripper, but he wasn't. He wasn't like he was just. He happened to have this kind of a cape thingy, but he wasn't menacing. He wasn't, just like you said, the serpent wasn't scary, and he was like, he looked at me, or I couldn't see his eyes, but it seemed like he put his attention on me, and he goes, "Oh, look at this," and then I realized he's the guy who's responsible for making all the content in the universe of dragons, snakes, serpents. He makes all of that. So then he would like make these gestures with his hands, and like snakes and dragons will come out and like fly around, and he would do this again, and like more kinds of things would come out. And he was very proud of what he was doing, and he was like, look at this, look at this. And he was very kind of playful with me. And then after that, I remember when I was snapping out of it, when I was coming back, it felt like I was literally being reborn, because I looked at my hand and it looked like a fetus's hand. And it's almost like I was climbing through some kind of a membrane back into this world. And I remember just tears coming out of my eyes of joy and wonder. And I was hooked. I was like, oh my God.
AI, stem cells, they could do some wild shit down there.
I got the stem cells in my shoulder. My shoulder was jacked. I went down there, worked, man.
Eric Anders' neck was up, and then he went down and got stem cell treatment. Now it doesn't bother him at all anymore.
I definitely recommend CPI. It's changed my life. The best stem cell clinic in the world.
I just come and I do stem cells to make sure that I'm resetting my body and staying healthy.
It regenerates tissue, reduces inflammation. The results are amazing.
CPI stem cells is where you want to go. There's no other place in town. They do the best work in the world. I feel incredible.
If there's anything causing you to not live the quality of life that you like, then this investment is more than worth it.
When it comes to the science of stem cells, no one comes close to CPI. There's not even a close second.
For a free doctor call to see if stem cells is the right option for you, visit us at cpistemcells.com.
This is insane. Like, how can this not be more talked about? Like in mainstream. And then I obviously really loved it, and I did it every opportunity I had, which back then it was super expensive, so obviously I couldn't do it all the time. But and then
how often did you do it back then?
I don't know, every few months, every 2-3 months or something.
Okay.
And then eventually, and again, I'm a pretty, like, it wasn't even like, like teenagers do this stuff because they're rebellious, right? They're kind of like, oh, we're going to go crazy. We're going to do whatever, right? But it wasn't that. I just really love the psychedelic space. I always have. I love going further. I love pushing the envelope. I love seeing what's possible. I did like quantities of psychedelics that for some people they just like, they go, that's insane. Like I once drove to Vegas and just kept on eating acid. Like I think I ended up doing like 5,400 micrograms, like literally ate like 54 tabs of acid as I was driving. I was driving to a Canelo fight actually, which was kind of crazy. And I just wanted to see, where do I lose where is it? Like, where's the line where I no longer know what's going on? So I was trying shit like this. Like I'm just like that. And I'm no longer like I don't do that anymore, but that for a big majority of my life, I was exploring very deeply. And DMT was definitely central to that exploration. And then eventually, what happened was, this is kind of like what propelled into this current state. I came back from a meditation retreat. I try and do at least one or two Vipassana retreats a year. I really like it. And I come back, and I don't know if it's because of it or maybe it's just unrelated and my mind was clear. I don't know. But I come back, and I really felt like smoking, and I smoked like a crazy amount of DMT, like I don't know, almost a bag. I had there's this guy in LA that used to make these vaporizers. He also used to build Glocks, like guns. So he made this like really special, nice thing where you can just literally do as much as you want. Like you can just go, basically, you can smoke a bag in like one go. And so I put like a bunch on the thing, and I smoke it. And then I laid back on my bed, and I'm looking up. And then about 45 minutes later, I realized nothing happened. I was just daydreaming. And I was like, wait, what? How can this be? Like, that's impossible. Like, I smoked so much. Now, it's possible that there's something called the whiteout. The whiteout means that you've smoked so much, you don't even know you went. It just, your life kind of stops, begins, and you don't even know that anything happened, right? It's possible. But I don't, like, as far as I know, I was just kind of laying there and just looking at the ceiling. And then I sat up when I realized this, and there's this famous talk that Terence McKenna gives where he says, when he talks about mushrooms, but he says, this is not a drug. This is an alien disguising as a drug. And all of a sudden, in that instance, I don't know why, even though it's a thought that we might have, but you know how there's a dial in your brain responsible for how seriously you take a proposition, right? So there's a difference between thinking there's a fire in the building and knowing there's a fire in the building. If you know there's a fire in the building, there's going to be some emotional response, and you're going to get up and you're going to go, right? And for some reason, that dial of the proposition, wait, is this an actual alien civilization talking to us, went to full red. Like I was just convinced in that instance. I was like, wait, is that an actual alien civilization? And the second I thought that, now I didn't smoke anymore. This was already like 45 minutes. I didn't smoke any more DMT. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the whole room flashed white. It just went, and I heard whispers all over the room. It's like, okay, he's paying attention. What do we say? And I was like I heard it, but it wasn't English, but I could understand the gist of what they were like communicating to one another. And I look, and to my right, a frog guy, he's like a frog reptilian guy, appeared right next to me. And Eddie, I'm not talking to you like like sometimes you see entity, they're like in your periphery, or it's kind of like you feel their presence. No. We're talking a dude, like presence right next to me. I didn't, but I could probably touch him. Like he's standing right next to me. And at that instance, I just go, whoa, okay. Like think about it. I thought that's it. Like I really did it this time, right? And then he points to the guitar at the end of the room, and then the whole room just vignettes on the guitar. It's like, guitar, go to the guitar. And then I go, oh, they want to communicate like music theory or something. And I'm like, I'm not a musician. I just fuck around. And they're like, no, go to the guitar. I was like, okay. So I go to the guitar, I sit down, I pick up the guitar, and then the frog dude disappears from one side of the room and appears right next to me, like that. Like, and then he puts his frog fingers like on the where you strum and where you do the chords, and he's like, do this. And I try, like obviously I'm all, on this thing, and I'm kind of like lost a little bit, but I'm trying to follow, and I kind of do this, and then I go once, then he changes, it goes, okay, now do this. And I do it, and now it makes sense. Like all of a sudden they make sense. Now I don't really know how to play. I just practicing. So he's like, he was saying, okay, do you understand? Like, you don't know how to do this. I'm telling you how to do this. I'm real. This is real information. And I go, oh. And then I knew that in that instance, nothing will ever be the same again. And I always tell this part of the story because it's kind of funny. I lived in Westwood back then, right next to UCLA, and I was renting out my other room for Airbnb. And I had a postdoc in a PhD in physics in the other room, Marco from Italy. And it was like 2 a.m. and I was so blown away that I just exclaimed his name. I was like, Marco! And obviously he didn't wake up, luckily. But that was the beginning of these experiences where I was like, okay, whatever this is, this cannot be in my brain. And then I went through this period of like almost a year where I smoked DMT every single day, all day, maybe like good 14, 15 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and literally the every time I would go, it would be like a phone call, and they would just show up in my room, talk to me, show me things. It was as real as you are to me right now. Mom came back home, so they're going apeshit. So hold on, let me close the door. So then in that instant, and then they were giving me like lessons about how things work. They would like show me all kinds of things. And again, it was super real. And then I was like, okay, hold on. This is crazy. Like this has to be more than just a hallucination. And it was still not convinced. And every time they would show me things, they're like, dude, what do we have to show you? Like, they're like, go to the living room. I go to the living room. They're like, look up. I go look up. They're like, you see the literally in that pace. It wasn't, on DMT, everything is like super fast. It's like, pa, 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 pa. No, they're like slow down to my level of understanding. And they're like, okay, you see the lights? I'm like, yeah, okay. Now check this out. We're going to ionize the air. I didn't even know what that meant. But they're like, 1, 2, 3. And then I could feel all my clothes just like static, like all over my body. They're like, you feel that? I'm like, we're doing this. I was like, and they're like, and I still would not accept it because I mean, it's crazy, right? And then I found that there's a whole phenomena of this kind that people experience this ultra realistic experience on DMT beyond what DMT is usually. It's a thing, like people experience this. And then they are convinced they're talking to aliens and all that stuff. I read this case about this guy in Florida who's a therapist, and this happened to him. And he started like, he just quit his job and all day he was just talking to aliens. And then eventually he himself had to go to a therapist who told him, okay, listen, you got to stop doing that. You're not talking to aliens. Just basically convinced him to like stop doing that. Now, I didn't stop living my life. I kept on doing everything the same. I just kept on smoking DMT while I'm doing everything else. So then when I started asking the aliens or whatever you want to call them, like, okay, show me some, like, give me something, like, show me how to build a spaceship. I don't know, like something I can show other people that this is not just in my head, right? And every time, obviously, there would be no, it wasn't forthcoming. So I was like, okay. After about a year plus of this, I said, okay, listen, this is amazing, and I'm obviously going to be coming back to visit, but I can't keep doing this. What is this for? Like, I don't understand. There's nothing you're telling me that I can apply in the real world, and this is just kind of like it goes.
You're not learning anything about life and
they were showing me. Well, they showed me esoteric things. They showed me, first of all, these like structures of some kind of alien civilizations and who belongs where and who does what. And then they showed me things like, hey, when we jump into your body and you go like this and now do this, now the room folds in half. You see, you can fold the room in half. I'm like, okay, like cool party trick. Like, what do I do with that, right? Again, it's amazing when you're experiencing it, but it's not something you can. This is why I'm not big on trip reports, because when people tell you the story, right, and they're like, okay, but like if you weren't there yourself, like people kind of brush it off, right? It doesn't really matter to them. Like, okay, so I'm going to tell you that they told me that these aliens do this, these aliens do that. Okay, so what? Like, I don't know. It's like, who knows? So stuff like that. And then the one thing I did understand from all of this, for sure, is that we are absolutely part of this larger, some kind of a structure. And there is a goal to it, like it's building towards a thing. Something is happening. The universe, in a sense, is trying to understand itself through these processes. And there is this like all-encompassing, I guess you can call it software or energy or spirit or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. But it goes through everything, and it's learning both what's possible, and according to that, it also gives rise to the next possible steps. So it's almost like it's the ultimate system, right? And you can say this is God's plan, by the way, that it would perfectly map onto that kind of a vision. But it was clear that whatever it is, it operates under computational rules. So now I didn't really know, didn't really care that much about these ideas about simulation theory or anything like this, because I felt that it was almost like a so what? Like, okay, so it's simulated, but the laws of physics are still the laws of physics, right? Okay, so who cares? Like, so if we ever discover a way to talk to the external layer, okay, then it becomes relevant. But until that moment, it's just the laws of physics or whatever it is else that we know, right? So that's basically what my attitude towards it was.
I'd like to know, like, I know you don't think people care about what they try to teach you or what you learn because they weren't there, but people still want to hear about it, whether they believe it or not. That's another thing. But for entertainment purposes, I mean, what were they telling you? What was the most significant thing that you learned from that year of doing it every day, talking to these entities, whatever they were? Like, what do you feel? I know you don't like talking about it, but
No,
you think
I get
people don't. You don't think people are going to believe, but we still want to hear it.
Okay, well then, so actually the most significant thing they ever showed me wasn't in that year. It was way later when I already figured out that the laser's supposed to do something, and I was already talking about it publicly.
Did they tell you to use the laser?
No, so what happened? So I'll just shorten that part of the story, and then we can talk about what they showed me, because I think you might find it interesting. The what happened after this period where I stopped doing the daily thing, I kept on thinking about it once in a while, but I just kept on living my life. But something interesting started happening so first of all, I made through a major life transformation, which obviously is connected, but at the time I didn't really connect the two. I basically get 4 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I got up from the bed and I pulled the bookshelf off the wall just with my hands and then dropped it on the floor. I wasn't doing it. It was just kind of happening through me, and it felt very natural. It felt like brushing my teeth. It didn't feel like I'm having a psychotic break or anything. It just felt like a normal task. And then I kept on moving for 3 days straight, and I packed my entire apartment. I didn't know what I was doing. Packed my entire apartment, rented the biggest U-Haul I could get, drove to Calabasas to the landfill. I don't know if you know, but you can pay $40 and basically drop anything you want there. Took me 2 or 3 trips. I threw away everything I owned. Literally, like brand new flat screen TVs. I had a giant mahogany table that cost a fortune. Trash. Didn't think twice. Like, just, I didn't even sell it. I didn't store it. There was one thing that I kept, which is my big bed, because it was like a $10,000 bed, and I knew that one day I'll be able to gift it to someone that might enjoy it. And I put it in my friend's back garage. The rest of it, all trash. I have this on video. And
real quick,
Yeah.
what were you doing for a living? How'd you pay your rent during all this time?
I was a subcontractor. We were building commercial fire suppression systems for restaurants.
Okay.
And I had a very good pay. Pretty, like, it kind of felt like I made it, right? It felt like, I lived in this really nice neighborhood in Westwood, where doctors and lawyers live, so you kind of feel like, I made it,
Yeah.
do whatever I want, afford whatever I want. But I had a lot of, like, I would come back home in the end of the day, and I already trying to do like creative things. I would, try and edit things, or I was doing some acting, and I was in a couple of things, and I really enjoyed that stuff, right? But every time I would come back home, and I was like, I just didn't have enough energy. Like, my soul didn't have enough energy to do any of this. Like, I would try, and it was shit. Like, it was just, I'm drained. Oh, this is actually a very interesting part of the story.
So what made you want to get rid of everything?
No, there was no conscious decision. I wasn't deciding any of this. This was like literally something happening, and I'm just allowing it to happen. I did not know what was going on. It was crazy. So, like, imagine, like, for 3 days this is happening. It's not like it happened in like 30 minutes. Like, 3 days I'm moving, but I'm not doing it. And literally I'm like throwing everything away. And there were instances where, like, my rational mind tries to come back in when I'm in the landfill and I'm throwing something away. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? This TV is like $6,000. Put it in the storage. Boom, out. And the second it's out, I felt this like thing lifted off my chest, and then I kept on throwing shit away. And then I had a crazy sciatica for maybe 10 or 15 years, and I had morphine prescribed to me. That's how bad it was. yeah, you from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you probably had quite a bit of injuries. I don't know if you ever had sciatica, but that shit is insane. Like you can't stand, you can't lay down, you can't sit. It doesn't matter. It's so excruciating, and I couldn't walk for weeks sometimes. And they had morphine prescribed to me, and they said, "Well, your L5 and L3 are fully herniated." They did an MRI, so that's why you have the sciatica, which makes sense. Uh, but then the reason I'm telling you this part, I come back to the apartment, to an empty apartment, and only then I realized what I did. I had no idea what was happening. I didn't have a plan. I don't know why I'm doing this. And all of a sudden it dawned on me what I just did. I threw away everything. But then I noticed something. I had no more pain. I had zero pain. And I never got that pain again. Not once. So
just by throwing everything away, what was left in your apartment or your house?
no, zero,
Nothing?
zero things. No, not despite throwing everything away, because I threw everything away. I had no more physical pain, and I never had to take another painkiller for this stuff ever again. And guess what? Herniated, not herniated discs, especially ones that are fully, the ones that broke, like not like bulging discs, but like fully herniated, they don't go back. I still have that. Like my discs are still herniated, but no pain. So then I realized, oh, this is all like, it's all right here, all of it. So then whatever it was, my body was yelling at me that like whatever I'm doing in my life right now is just not the right thing. And then I decided that I'm going to keep listening to this inner voice that kind of guides me to move. And I basically kind of couch surfed for a year. Obviously, I quit my job. I left the apartment because I couldn't afford such an apartment anymore. So I basically kind of couch surfed for like a year plus.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. And
how did that work out? Like you just had friends that
yeah, I basically had enough good friends that I just kind
did
of
they
like,
think you were just like all drugged out and you're like hitting rock
no,
bottom?
I wasn't drugged out at all. I'm people that know me very well, and
they thought it was cool. They're like, damn, this guy's giving up everything.
I don't know what they were thinking, honestly. I have no idea. I just know that they were good enough friends that just kind of let me drop on their couches. And yeah, even honestly, I it never felt like it just felt like the logical explanation of it would be I didn't have a family yet. I wasn't involved romantically with anyone. Don't have kids. I was like, whatever this is, this is the time for it, because you can't do shit like this if you have kids and like you have a family, right? So it's like, okay, well, whatever this is, I guess I have to go through it. And it felt very significant, but it wasn't clear immediately why. So I was just kind of following it. And I even I remember there was a few days I actually spent in the park, but it wasn't like ooh, I was a homeless, like, it was almost on purpose. It was almost like I can call my friend, but it's warm enough. Who cares? I just slept on the bench. And there was like an adventure sense to it, right? And the thing is that I could at any point, I'm a capable guy. I can at any point I could have just go and gotten another job or something. It's not like it's a problem, but the whole time it was like, no, you are never doing anything you don't love ever again. And I go, okay, and whatever it takes, it doesn't matter. And then I just kept going with it. And I already had a brand. Funny enough, I started a clothing brand called Fuck It Brand, and it started from this pretty, dark story about a friend who almost committed suicide, and then he kind of bounced back, and it was this whole story about it. But then when we had it as an entity, I was like, well, I can't own a brand called Fuck It Brand if I don't walk the walk, right? If it's just like you truly actually walk through that, whatever that is. So I saw it as a sign to just keep going no matter what. And so then while all of this craziness is happening, these signs started appearing for me. But they weren't like, oh, I saw 111 on the clock or something. Like it wasn't that, flimsy. It was like I was walking in the middle of the night, looking at a stoplight, thinking about this subject of DMT and communicating between the dimensions and how can we do it maybe. And I have a little bit of understanding of physics, and I have a little bit of understanding of like how certain things work. So like I was specifically thinking about how quantum computers work, right? And I was like, okay, well, we know that decoherence allows for some kind of a signal to be transferred between the multiple realms. That's how it works. There must be something there. And as I'm thinking this, I'm looking at the stoplight, and then I notice in the middle of the night that the way the light was changing from red to green to yellow, the if you go like this in the middle of the night, you'll see that the way that the light distributes itself on the edges looks different from the different colors. Now, I know that there might be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe the glass sits different, maybe it's a different glass for each light. I have no idea. But the second I thought that, it's almost like somebody grabbed me by the shoulders and went, yes, that, look there, that. And I goes, okay. And then I look down, and at the same instance, I see these numbers on the floor. I think it's 081803. I think the first one was. You know, the Department of Water and Power, they write numbers on the floor, right?
Yeah.
In LA. So this was like two numbers in a row, and I didn't even connect it to that. I started doing like freelancing little production stuff, and I was working on this music video, and I was editing it. That's when I was outside, and there was this color problem that I couldn't solve in a scene for like hours, and I was frustrated. That's why I was on that walk. I had to go take a walk and get a sandwich from Ralph's. So then I look at these numbers, and the first thought that I had is, if the number itself has this kind of like almost like a dial on it. I can show you, like it's almost like a dial on it. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if this number somehow matches a LUT, technical LUT thing, and it solves my color problem in my software in Premiere? And so I took a picture of the numbers. So I go back home. So I didn't even made a connection to the fact that I was just thinking about the physics stuff. I was just kind of, come back home, punch in these numbers on my Mac on a Spotlight. Now, it's important to mention that it's a Spotlight because it's not Google. I wasn't Googling anything. Spotlight looks through your computer, and it looks through the web as well at the same time. I just put in the numbers. There was one hit, and it wasn't on my computer. It found one hit on the internet, and it matched a paper from CERN. Has to do with looking for particles outside of the standard model a year after the discovery of the Higgs boson particle. I'm sitting, and I have a picture of this till this day. I'm sitting there, I'm like, what? Do you understand how crazy that, like, I was like, I saw these numbers right when I was looking at the light, thinking about quantum computers and physics. And this number was right under my feet when I did that. I know because that's when I took the picture. And now I'm like, I'm just punching in the number and it matches this paper from CERN? What? So then I started looking for like adjacent numbers, and I discovered that all the numbers around it are not. They're matching papers in other subjects like biology and things like this. I was like, what are the chances that, first of all, it will be even the subject matter, just physics, but then it will also be in something that is so relevant to the exact thing that I was thinking about. So that's one example of the kinds of things that would happen to me. I would have a lot of them happen to me, and I started recording all of them, but I didn't let it derange me. Sometimes people kind of let this kind of stuff derange them. So I just kind of kept on paying attention to it, so to speak. And
they're like super synchronicities, right?
Super synchronicities, insane synchronicities. The number 42 started following me everywhere, just everywhere.
I used to get those all the time too, man. I used to write them down in my notes. So it would happen to me so much. It still happens to me, but not like 10, 15 years ago. It was insane. Like it was fucking crazy.
I gotta show you this. When was the last time that you experienced?
Like a week ago.
Okay. But at a certain point, you kind of go, okay, that's just for me.
It's like, okay, there it is again. You know?
Yeah, there it is again. Exactly. You nailed it. There it is again. Exactly. So these are the first numbers that appeared. Okay. Like this. See?
That's on the floor in front of the stoplight.
It was right next to Pierce College. And I'm looking at this thing, and then this is I'll show you the picture I took of my laptop. Look. 01802, that's the number on the floor. Look at can you read the title?
Yes.
It's crazy. And no other things, by the way. I just
hold it again. You read it, because I don't think anybody else is going to be able to
search for Higgs boson pair production in the money sign. It's probably one of their symbols. Intermeth, and then it gives you the type of the the machines they use to do it. But it's basically by CERN, by in Geneva,
Yes.
and specifically about them searching particles outside of the standard model, which means they're looking for high power physics. Like, is there something outside of the particles that we know, outside of the world that we live in, right?
Yeah.
So now, to be quite frank, when I combed through the paper, till this day, I didn't really find anything in the paper that was like, okay, that really connects to there was no like real conclusion to the paper. But from the paper, it led me to another thing that led me to another thing. Now, that alone, if it would just be that kind of stuff, I mean, it's like, okay, Charlie Day connecting dots in the basement. It's like, oh man, it's crazy. It's like, okay, it doesn't really go anywhere, right? But fast forward about 3 years, this thing keeps happening. The number 42 started happening to me like on an insane level, like
42.
42, and the whole thing with 42 is that it's in the story, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Why
It's
is that? Why 42?
So the story goes that basically they build this supercomputer, and they ask this super advanced civilization, and they say, "Hey, can you tell us the answer to life, the universe, and everything?" And the supercomputer goes, "Sure, come back in 7 million years, and I'll give you the answer." And so they go, blah blah blah. They come back in 7 million years, and then the computer goes, "Okay, I found the answer, but you're not gonna like it." And they go, "No, no, it's okay. Like, tell us. There's like a big party, whatever." And he's like, "Okay, well, the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42." And they go like, "What does that mean? What kind of answer is that?" And he goes, "Well, what kind of question is that?" And then basically that's where the book begins, because basically it says, well, you don't know what you're asking. What you want is the ultimate question, not the ultimate answer. What is the question you're asking? So basically, there's a big debate whether Douglas Adams, the writer, meant that the number 42 actually does mean something. It's just that you don't know the question. And if you know the question, it would make sense. Or it's just kind of like a joke where the computer goes, "What are you even asking me?" Right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that, and then in the book, the computer says, well, so they tell the computer, "Okay, but tell us the ultimate question." So the computer goes, "Well, I'm not powerful enough to give you that, but I can build a computer that can. And I will build this computer, and this computer is going to be very, very advanced." And then in the book, basically, you discover that that computer that is calculating the ultimate question is the Earth. And everything that happens on Earth, life, and all of that is basically the computational process looking for the ultimate question. Now, what seems to be the case is that Douglas Adams, the writer, wasn't that far off. It's just that what is calculating the ultimate question is the multiverse. It's everything that exists. And who is asking the question? Well, that's a separate question. But I guess you can say God is asking the question, because God doesn't really know why everything exists. And so I think that the significance of 42 in this case is the fact that they're basically saying, okay, so that's happening, and know that this is part of a larger story that is also happening at the same time, and you guys are playing a role. And the reason I'm kind of lingering a little bit on the 42 is because fast forward 3 years, this stuff keeps happening to me. And by then I started dating my now fiance. And I told her what was going on. I told her that I talked to aliens and, that kind of stuff. And that's how I knew she was the one, because she didn't leave me.
Did you, when you met her, were you still couch surfing, or did you have your own spot?
Yeah. No, she met me when I was basically homeless.
How did that happen?
She sat next to me on a plane. I had a ticket bought already before for a wedding of a friend of mine in Florida. And she was also going to a wedding in Florida from LA, but she's from Florida originally. Back then she was dating somebody. But she sat next to me on the plane. It couldn't have been more perfect. It's like one of these rom-coms, just like she sat next to me on a plane, and the second we started talking, I immediately was like, oh, it felt like it was done to us. Like the universe went this. do this. And I was like, oh my God. Like I immediately understood what it's supposed to be, you know? And then, I told her what was going on about a year in, and she's very open-minded, but she's also very, I guess, scientifically oriented.
Wait, you waited a year before you told her about aliens?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to do that on a first date.
You don't do it on the first date. Definitely not. But then, so then I told her about this, and then she kind of said, "Okay, cool story, bro. Like, okay, like, what are you gonna do with it, right?" But then we were in Colorado, in the botanical gardens, and we stepped outside. Oh, when we were in the botanical gardens, we started talking about this stuff. And we started talking about light and how plants receive light and why they're green. That, because they don't use green. It's the only color they don't use, so they reject it. That's why they look green. So then I asked, okay, but why are certain plants red? Do they reject red? Why do they reject red and not green? Like, what's right? And she knows a lot about plants, so she started explaining to me all this stuff. So then in that day, the same feeling that I had next to Pierce College that day when somebody grabbed me by the shoulders and said, yes, look there. It was like that same feeling. It was like, yes, yes, this. Whatever you're saying right now, light, yes, pay attention to this again. I was like, okay, so we step outside of Botanical Gardens. It was a super hot day, so she crossed the street to go stand under a shade, under a tree. I called an Uber to go back to the hotel, and then I crossed the street to wait for the Uber, and I hug her. And then I hug her, and I look down like this, and I go, Kelsey, look down. Look at this.
"42."
She was standing on it, because I told her before about the 42, and it's the same writing as these. And at that point, she went, I'm telling you, like, I'm not just imagining, this is crazy. She goes like, what the fuck? I go like, okay. So then what it told me is that she's a key. She was standing on it. And sure enough, that day when we together, basically, she was like, okay, this is nuts. Show me that paper again. And she's a researcher, so she's really good at going through a lot of information fast. So she pulled up like the original paper, and then we started together. We went to this Thai restaurant, I remember. We drove to Boulder, and then we went to this Thai restaurant, and we were both on our phones right next to each other, going through this like crazy, like, oh, this paper leads to this paper leads to whatever, like going nuts, right? About 30 minutes in, we both turn to each other and go, lasers, yes. Like, it told both of us the same thing. It's like, culminated light, 650 nanometers, something's supposed to happen. I was like, and Eddie, I never in my life thought it would work, because every time that you think you're on a trail or something, it never pans out. It's just like a feeling that it gives you. There's a sense of urgency. It kind of tells you, yeah, all this stuff. And it's never nothing. So then I was like, well, it felt important. So I was like, okay, cool. So we'll order a laser. The funniest thing, it was, just so you don't think I'm making this up, this is where this was during the pandemic. And this is where it was, the 42 which was drawn. It was on Corona Street, on fucking thing. I was like, okay. So then I order a laser, but because
and were you guys living in Colorado at this point?
No. We went to drop the dogs with her parents, so we met them halfway in Oklahoma. So we drove there because we needed to drop the dogs.
And where were you living at this point?
LA.
With her? Did you moved in with her?
Yeah.
Oh, how long did it take after the wedding in Florida because she had a boyfriend, right?
Well, she had a boy. No, so she lived in Florida, and then she moved to LA with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And that's when I met her, because she was going back to Florida for a wedding, and I was going to a wedding, and she sat next to me on a plane. Maybe we almost didn't exchange numbers, by the way, which is kind of funny. But maybe 2-3 months in, we kind of.
And you were still homeless during those 2 or 3 months?
Yeah. I was still, well, yeah, I was like bouncing between different places. Like, I had a friend who used to grow in somewhere in the valley, and I stayed at the house with things.
Yeah.
I was like,
and you were like trimming?
No, I wasn't doing anything. I was just staying there. Like yeah, I was just literally just going with the flow. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't trying to figure it out. I asked a friend of mine who's a producer in Hollywood. I was like, hey, can I shadow you? Because he really knows a lot about the industry. And I was like, maybe I'll do a little bit of production stuff. So he allowed me to kind of follow him around for like 3 months. So every morning I would show up to his office and like kind of follow him around and help him out and
And
do
he give
that.
you money for it too? He'd pay you?
No, wasn't taking
How
any.
were you able to buy food?
Very, very minimally. Like I would, I would get, if I would do like a little production work, I would stretch it over a long time. I would like buy only tuna cans, whatever you
Yeah.
gotta do. Like you stretch it
Okay.
out. Yeah,
Okay.
to stretch it out. You'll be surprised how much you can live on if you only eat hot dogs and tuna cans.
So 3 months after that wedding, you guys, she had broke up with her boyfriend. Then you move in with her.
Well, no, she basically 3 months in, we went on this non-date on Melrose, and at that instance, it was clear that I was like, okay, that's my wife. Like that's just, of course, right?
Yeah.
And then we kind of, but again, it's not that easy, right? So she's kind of does her thing. I was never pushing. I was never doing anything like to like try and undermine the relationship. Nothing like that. And then it just naturally kind of kept on happening. And also they were already kind of like at the end of that relationship. It was already kind of like unraveling.
Yeah.
And then she actually took a position in Las Vegas. She's a therapist, so she took a position in Las Vegas, and she lived there for a year. And I came to visit, and then I came back. And during a pandemic, it's actually funny because like one of the things that I lived in my friend's bagel shop for like quite a few months. It's really funny because it was closed. The pandemic was like you couldn't open anything, and he had everything there. And she even came and like slept with me in the bagel shop one night. It was kind of great. It was kind of like an adventure. And then after that, we decided, okay, we're gonna move in together. So she came to LA, and because that's where we dropped the dogs because we needed to make a big move, and she wanted to come to LA. We had to find a place, and so we did that. That's when we were going back home from Oklahoma. That's when that happened. So I ordered the laser, but because of the pandemic, you couldn't really get the laser anywhere. Everything was backed up. You remember, like there was nothing. The ports were closed. So it took it like it was like this melodramatic thing. You couldn't just buy on Amazon like a laser pointer or anything. It was not available. So all I could do, ironically, the only place I could get a laser from was China. And only the ones that kind of you have to build a circuit for. You couldn't get the ones that are like ready to go. And now I know there's a reason for that, by the way. But basically, I didn't know anything about soldering or anything like this. I just actually, her dad is an engineer, so I was like, hey, how do I do a circuit, whatever. So I build a little circuit. The thing arrives after like 3 months. I build it. At no point do I think this is gonna work. At no point. I'm like, this is a fun game. This is hilarious, and I know I'm gonna laugh because it's gonna be something stupid, right? It's gonna be like, I don't know, like I would turn on the laser and it would do some kind of like you said, like a light show in my eyes. Like,
What were you thinking that might happen? What was the message that you and your girl got when you guys were in Colorado? Laser? It just said, get a laser, you'll figure it out.
Didn't say get a laser. The way it communicates, it's almost like there's a repetition that would happen. And if it happens like very often, like, okay, that's what we mean. Okay,
Laser kept coming up.
That's the reason why we turned to each other and said lasers, like because literally the papers that kept on coming back like 10 times in a row, I don't know how many times really, but like a lot of times in a row, is like columnated light laser, has to be 650. That's the thing that kept on coming back. It's not like somebody's telling you do this. It's like that's the paper that keeps coming back. So I was like, okay, do that. I don't know. Turn it on, smoke DMT, look at the light. I go, there's a code in the wall. Kelsey goes, what? I go, there's a code in the wall. And she goes, what do you mean? Like, I just said, there's literally code moving in the wall. She goes, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know how else to describe it in English, but that's what I'm saying to you is what is happening. So I started showing other people.
She didn't want to smoke DMT and do it?
She didn't. She's not the kind of. Now she did, but like before, she wasn't.
Okay.
She smoked weed one time in her life and never did it again. Like she was that kind of person. Like it
Yeah.
was not in her realms. Um, and then I started showing other people, and literally every single person saw the same. Not only saw the same thing. It's not like. So here's the difference. When you go to the DMT space, a lot of people kind of report similar things, right? Some people say, "Oh, I saw the gestures. I saw these. I saw the elves. I saw that," and then we kind of exchange stories. How did they look like? All that kind of stuff. Okay. But it's like I'm telling you about a meeting I had with someone, right? It's that kind of a thing. It's not the same thing as I'm standing in a room with you and I'm looking at the same thing at the same time. And I'm like, "Are you seeing this?" I'm like, "Yep." And you talking about, you're pointing to it, like you like describing the different things that you're seeing. And then after about 12 people or so, I was like, okay, this is crazy. Like, what are the chances? Because at first I had some thoughts, maybe not seriously, but maybe semi-seriously. It was like, is this a schizophrenic outbreak? Because numbers are talking to me. I was in the beginning of my 30s. That's about the time that it usually breaks for people if they have a tendency for it. I've done a lot of psychedelics in my life. So I was like, did I break my brain? Because it's like, I mean, I felt normal, but what are the chances that I made this kind of a discovery? There's zero. Like there's no way. So then also, why would nobody else figure it out before? Like it's so simple. It's just a laser and DMT. Somehow nobody ever made that connection. So then I was like, okay. So then I started showing, and then eventually I was like, well, how about I email a scientist? Let's give it a stab. And then I tried to email Donald Hoffman and Gary Nolan. They're the kind of like, more like Donald Hoffman investigates this consciousness stuff, and Gary Nolan more like the UAP stuff. But like they're more open-minded scientists. So I kind of emailed them, and then I got responses, but what are they going to do with that? It's like, hey, I discovered we live in a simulation. It's like, what do you do with that? So then I said, okay, well, one thing I do know how to do is to create content. So I put out the first video, just basically talking about this. And I was very open-ended. I was like, look, this is what I found. This is what I think it is. But the truth is that the whole planet is going to have to weigh in on this. This is not a one-person thing. Like, we have to now understand what's going on. And then I started getting invited to these different events. And from there, I started getting a little bit more attention from all kinds of, people, individuals, filmmakers, scientists, kind of started connecting to all of these little pockets of communities. And eventually it got to a point. Oh, one thing I do want to mention, because that was the thing that really put it over the thing that put it over the hump for me. Because up until that point, even though it was already happening, I was kind of like, okay, I don't really know what to really frame this as, but I'm just gonna keep playing along, obviously. But then I was in the kitchen. We lived in Pasadena back then, and I'm in the kitchen, and we're overseeing the mountains. So that day, I'm smoking DMT. Kelsey's standing to my left, and all of a sudden, a capsule appears right in front of me in the kitchen. And again, it's not like a DMT visual. It was like, like augmented reality, when you just see objects, right? Like that, like a spherical thing, like an ellipse, like this, and just appeared in the. And Kelsey's like, of course, what's going on? I'm like, give me a second. And the thing opens up, and a podium came from the middle and opened into screens right in front of me with VR glasses and gloves to my right. And there was some kind of a suit, like straight up, like augmented reality, like real. And I'm like, what? And then I started walking around it, and I'm like looking at it, and some screens kind of like follow me around, and there's a body to the what I now call the console that is always there. It's the same. It's the capsule, and then on the floor there's these pods that appear at the same time, and then they coat the room. I made a whole video about this, in which we also do like a 3D illustration of this. So then that thing started appearing for me every single day. Every single time I smoke DMT. So if I smoke DMT even now, I don't have that much time anymore at this point, but like if I do smoke it, like the console just appears right in front of me and I can describe it to you. I can look at it. It's like a real thing. So then at that point I was like, okay. And in addition to that, the reason I mentioned the mountains is because the day after, for like a year plus, I was asking them directly, wait, because I wasn't thinking simulation, just so you understand. I wasn't thinking, even with the code and everything, I thought we're just kind of peering through to like another dimension or something, something like that. Like I never thought simulation. But then I asked them, they were showing me some things and I was like, wait, are you simulating this space? Like, is this like what we think of as a simulation? And then they would never answer me. And then that one day after the console appeared, the next day, I'm standing in front of the mountains on the balcony. I'm smoking DMT and nothing happens. And then I smoke more and nothing happens. But the feeling is almost like, okay, keep going. Keep going. You're going to need some fuel for this one. So then I keep smoking. And all of a sudden, in front of the mountains of Pasadena, between the trees and the mountains, I see these satellite dishes that just come out. And again, they looked completely real. They were not like a DMT hallucination. They were just like real satellites that just came out. And they had numbers on them, just kind of like what we see in the lasers. Almost like we're ordering simulation number 6457, whatever it is. That's what we need right now. And then the whole view in front of me, the mountains, the buildings, everything, was stripped to a grid, just like in the movie Tron. Just like, and then I'm looking at the thing, and I see on the bottom of my street something that I recognize, but I can't really make up what it is, which was basically the entire other half of the street upside down, like on an assembly line. So if my arm is like in a factory, imagine the buildings are now arranged upside down on this assembly line right in front of you, just like you would see like the reflection in a lake, let's say, of something, right? And then it kind of goes, just covered the whole side of the street, and then it kept on, the thing started reforming, buildings, trees, cars, people. I see everything forming in front of me in zigzags until it reached me like this, like, and it goes, and they're like, and then I understood why they wouldn't tell me. Because that instance, I didn't think it would do that to me because I thought I'm just going to accept whatever, but it did do it to me. In that instance, it definitely gives you this, there's like a gut punch. You're like, ugh.
What I think is probably the best meat slice in the game. It's called a Row Drag. Super simple, awesome combo. Before we get to the truck, throw a little pass on top of that. You know what I mean? So we're gonna get really good at that truck transition. How about you get really ninja with the Row Drag? The knee slice. Push him down, butterfly, boom, bam, boom. Here. 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 And then the fishnet, knee to the stomach, low the handle, break the frames, and then boom. Pull this out, grab my forearm, pop, pop. That's all the best shit from Twister Side Control right there in one throw. You guys want to go back and forth a little bit? Ready? Let's go.
Like you feel it. It's almost like something is lost, right? But then I realized it's not that anything is lost, is that you then realize that you actually, whatever role you're playing is both infinitely smaller and infinitely larger than you ever thought. Because A, you're not a puppet. The simulation is not like telling you what to do. And the only thing that is actually simulated is the environment. So the laws of physics for all intents and purposes. It's completely open-ended. So there's nothing dictates what's going to happen next, aside from your actions. And your agency is completely intact. So you have complete free will, or what you experience as free will. So basically the same world we thought we were in, it's just that it's behind the scenes, it is rendered on this, whatever you want to call it. But everything else is intact. And then you realize, oh, well, that means that I'm both infinitely less significant because there's so much more, and I'm infinitely more significant because I'm part of that much more. And that weird, like, it just does something to you. And that takes a second to kind of acclimate to this psychologically. But maybe that's why they weren't saying, because they weren't sure if it's not gonna like make me psychologically implode, just like completely, somehow I didn't really do that much like damage to me. But that was the moment where I no longer thought that maybe, but I knew for a fact that this is what's going on. And then I understood later that actually that's part of a process that is unfolding, that the laser discovery is only a tiny part of. Because everything you're seeing now, this uptake of all this weird stuff that is happening, like telepathy tapes, right? They've all of a sudden discovered all these kids that can, do telepathy. All this stuff that maybe they found now in Egypt, like maybe they did, maybe they did. It doesn't matter. There's going to be a lot of things that are coming up that will actually change everything we understand about the world, gently, and then less gently, and then less gently, and we basically have to come to terms with certain things, because there's no escaping understanding what we're actually in, like what kind of an environment this is and what's going on here and how it connects to, human destiny and all of that stuff.
Have you had a painter, an artist, go into take some DMT so that he could draw? Because everyone's talking about it, but it'd be nice to have like this, artist. What was that?
Yeah, there's a few. Let me see if I can.
Oh yeah, let me see what these artists are drawing.
I'm gonna send a request to share screen.
Boom.
Okay, you see that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is if you project the laser, and then here on the left is what I guess people call it like the mandalas, kind of like on the surface, but it's really just a two-dimensional slice of a three-dimensional thing that you see in the z-axis inwards, and in it, all of it is basically made of characters that kind of look like this right here on the left. Very similar to actually kind of like what you see in the movie, but just like it in the Matrix, but it's like it goes into infinity, into the z-axis as well, not just right in front of you. And then, wait, before you also couldn't see any images?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I think I could draw better than that, and I can't draw.
She hates it. She hates it. No, she just drew it in like 3 seconds.
Oh, is that's your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. She's an incredible artist. That's where she hates it.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Yeah. So this is just to share a few more examples. This is one of the 42 that appeared for me. Do you see this?
Yeah.
It was just me sitting, like crossing my legs, working, and then I'm like, what the? I'll show you what this actually is. Why I keep going back to this picture? Oh, okay. So this is the one I wanted to show you. Okay, so these balls that I just showed you, before you couldn't see images either. Like you couldn't when I was showing you
I didn't see any. The first image I saw was your wife's drawing.
Oh, okay. So you didn't see even that's why I couldn't understand why there's no reaction. Okay, there you go. Let's find it again then.
Yeah, that was the only one. The one we were just talking about, that's the first image I've seen.
Okay, so I should have this like in a folder ready for like podcasts. Okay, we'll find it right now. Okay, this is what I was showing you before. This is
okay. Is that what you see?
This is the closest rendition to like what it kind of feels like. It's way more specific. Imagine like super HD, super clear. It's none of that kind of like, do I see it, do I not see it kind of thing. Like super, super clear.
Can you make that full screen, that image? Is that possible?
I think it is possible. Hold on. Yeah. So that's the closest to what it feels like.
That looks pretty spectacular. That looks like a red matrix.
Yeah, and it's way more spectacular than this because there's like so much more information there, and there's also like these tapestries that are moving around. It's super complex. It looks super realistic. It really looks like you're looking through a microscope. And you see these little balls, whatever they are. This is what Dali was trying to recreate when we told it to do like buckyballs.
Yeah.
Basically, kind of like soccer balls, right? These shapes, they kind of look like soccer balls.
Yeah.
And I told Kelsey that I see those inside, and I told her they kind of look like kind of look like buckyballs, or I said hacky sacks. They kind of look like hacky sacks. And she said, what's buckyballs? And then she said, but also what's hacky sacks? So then I'm searching online. I'm like trying to find, I Google hacky sacks. That was the first hit that I found. Look at this. Now, very important detail. I wasn't searching for anything special. I literally just punched in hacky sacks. This was the first hit. Look at this. Wait, I thought I just saw. Oh, here it is. That's the first hit on Google.
And why is that significant? Because of that
42.
Oh, where's the 42? Oh, there you go.
42.
Wow.
Now, more
That's
than
crazy.
that. Okay, hold on. Do you see the company that makes it? Dragonfly food bags?
Yeah.
There's a organization called DMTX, the extended state, where they do intravenous study with the molecule. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. This is their logo.
Wow.
The dragonfly.
Interesting.
And look at this. This is the other one that this company has. That has, the reason it's called 42 is because it has 42 sides to it. Look at the description. Look at the description.
42 panels.
Somebody who can stay in control of virtually any situation is someone who is said to know where his or her food bag is. The Hitchhiker's 42 is that food bag, and when in possession of yours, you will be able to attain the impossible, or at least the improbable. But regardless what you face when using this magnificent food bag, just remember, don't panic. Available, filled with metal and soon moon rocks.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's just, like, I mean, this is just kind of like hilarious, right?
Yeah.
But these are the closest representations. These, and actually the closest one, I would say, see if I can find it now with all this mess. These are some paintings that a kid of a friend did. Here, I'll just do it here. And actually, we have a VR artist right now working on recreating what the code looks like fully inside.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And he also he recreated some of this is the closest, I would say, to what it really looks like. The actual characters.
Get some ones and zeros in there, twos.
Yeah. I mean, again, these are all kind of like, I don't think that until we have a way to record directly from the cortex, we'll be able to do this because it's just too much information moving all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you're the one to discover this. There's nobody else doing this in the world, as far as you know.
As far as I know. No, I mean, I had people that reached out to me and said, "Oh my God, I played with lasers back in the day and I saw some weird things, but I never thought about like looking specifically for for something specific." But yeah, no, as far as we know, and listen, at this point, we're not really. This is no longer like a contained thing. We have now literally people from all over the world, scientists, software developers, game developers, philosophers. I just had somebody reach out to me yesterday from the Santa Fe Institute. People at this point like fully engaged. Like you have.
Dude, you are part of world history, man. You know this? I mean, you're like super crazy significant. And from this point on, you basically discovered code in the simulation. What do you think? Do you believe in God?
So at this point, I know for a fact there's a God. Yeah,
of course. Like only a God could create a simulation, right? So simulation and God go hand in hand. To me, a lot of people that are balls deep into simulation, they're atheists, but whoever created the simulation, whoever created the codes, that's God. I mean, we're in a machine. We're in an electromagnetic machine. I mean, the sun, the stars, the moon, they're all connected. They're not just floating randomly. They're a clock. We're living in a clock. We're living in a machine. We set our clocks to the sun and to the moon and to the stars. The stars go around us. Polaris is right over the North Pole. All our compasses point to the North Pole. Like there's this electromagnetic force in the North Pole that has Polaris right over it, and all the stars are going around it, and they're all held together. The stars aren't going off on their own. We have wandering stars, the planets. Those are wandering stars. They're on their own orbit, but it's not random. Their orbit's not random. It's all connected by the same force. The sun, the moon, the stars, everything. And we're in this realm. And it is a simulation. And God created the simulation. And God sent down his only begotten son. I believe all that.
Yeah. And I mean, this actually leads me to what you asked me before, which is what was the most significant vision I was ever shown. And that was that, so they basically showed me the full structure, right? And I always say it's very important that everybody understands that it's not that I think that because of that necessarily means that is the ultimate structure of reality. Of course not. But for all intents and purposes, the same beings that showed me the whole thing, they also showed me this, which is that, and I was very surprised by a lot of it. And one of these things was that, they basically showed me that there's this, some kind of a realm that we're in that is made out of 3 bodies. There's 3 orbs. One of these orbs is our multiverse. So the entire multiverse we're in is just one of these orbs. And there's 2 more, and I don't know what they are. I have no idea. But it's part of a tri-system, like a 3-body system of some sort. Outside of all of that, I'm emphasizing outside of all of that because people keep going back to like Gaia. I'm like, no, that's way in. We're talking way out of that, right? Outside of all of that, there's a realm where all these gods reside. They're very different than what we are. Now, there is a hierarchy to things, and the higher up you go, the more ability to see through everything you have. But and this is the 2 things that really surprised me. The first one was that all of these gods, first of all, the biblical God is there, but he's not at the top. At the top, there's a woman. And that's just super arbitrary for me. Like, I don't even know why it would be a gender. Like, the biblical God didn't make sense to me already because, like, why would it be a gender? Why would it not be an orb of light of some kind of a general energy, right? But no, they're like, no, it has a sex. It's a woman. And she basically is a top of everything. And then throughout the levels, there's this hierarchy of functions, and every single layer serves a function. And I was shown that what our worlds are, they're basically internal simulations that every conscious unit gets to experience as long as it chooses to do so. So you have this, basically I was shown that I'm sitting alone with VR glasses in the basement with this infinite screens. And all my reality is basically filled with the content that makes sense to me across the entirety of time. And in each and every one of our worlds, we're alone. So right now, you are a projection in my world. And if in your world, if I'm existing only as a projection of yours. The mainframe knows what the kind of things you might be doing, the real you. And it projects it into my reality and says, well, when Eddie is presented with this kind of information, he would most likely do this or say this. And that's what the avatar in my world is doing. But behind the avatar of you in my world, there's no one. It's just a representation. And from what I understood, it's like a fail-safe mechanism. So nobody can actually hurt anybody else. So it's like if I'm starting to hurt people, I'm not actually hurting anybody. It's just, you're just basically hurting figments of your imagination. But you are real, but just in your own separate sandbox, in your own separate reality. And what I was shown is that the whole thing is evolving according to the Mandelbrot set. So the universes are automated according to the shoreline of this fractal, the Mandelbrot set. And the only thing that opens the channel to see the real ones, so like not the avatars, but the real beings, the conscious beings, is what we call love. So if there's a true openness to like this force, this channel of love, which is this binding force,
which is at a certain frequency,
you can actually. So, for example, right now, let's say, I don't know if you remember, but do you remember when you and I sat down at TGIF, and I actually told you about this, the first PGF that I was in. You probably don't remember, but
I
we said,
don't.
yeah, we said with Plaster, and we kind of talked about it, but very much like on the surface of it. So I met you before, right? But for all intents and purposes, you and I are just kind of getting to know each other. But the closer you get to a person, the more you're playing with this possibility, and it doesn't matter even if it's a romantic love or any other kind, any opening of that plays with this frequency of love. If you open, the degree to which you open that channel is the degree to which you're actually perceiving the real agent behind the avatar. So right now you're kind of like an automated figment of my imagination, maybe. But the closer you get to know a person, and they opening up to you and you opening up to them, and it's sincere. You know how when you fall in love with a woman and you like it, you sometimes people say, "Oh my God, I feel like we're the only ones in the world right now." Just you and I. That's because you are. Because literally in that instance, you're locked into this place where there's nothing else but you, but really there isn't. There's just you open this channel to this one other actual conscious being, and that's the unifying force is that. So only when a civilization on a global scale opens that channel fully, they can experience the totality of what they really are as the full organism. So like all the conscious agents recombine into this one conscious agent that then is being activated, and it then can be joined to this larger family of all the other organisms that exist.
Now, if person A, you're person A, and you see person B, and that's just a projection of them. It's not the real them. How is it that they remember that meeting that you guys, that interaction you had, if that was just an avatar?
So it's a little shifty there, right? But you don't know that they remember the meeting. The mainframe registers all the information, and it knows what happens in your world in relationship to everything else that happens to you. It would then, in turn, inform the other worlds in case anybody in the other worlds run into my avatar in their world. And then it would tell them what I would do by showing an action or something that I said that would match what I would usually say or act according to whatever situation there is. And it constantly updates. So when you evolve, it evolves with you. So it's like, okay, now they're doing this, no problem. So then it would project it into your world. But the second that enough actual love is present, again, not infatuation or sexual attraction, but like actual love, when enough of it is present, it's almost like because it's such a unfalsifiable and it's impossible to fake the true essence of what love is. It's the ultimate cryptography, right? You're so safe that it can now open the doors, and now you are in the presence of the actual agent without the interference of the mainframe to be in between you and translate. Like now the veil is lifted. You can actually see the other. And when
there's times where the real person and there just has to be a connection.
It has to be a real connection of love, and it's like a lock that opens and the door is open, and it feels different. It feels all of a sudden different to be in the presence of that.
So basically, when you're seeing people drive by in traffic, they're in your world. They don't really actually exist.
No. It does not mean, by the way, you should go and do whatever you want, because the system still registers what you're doing.
Yeah, so you could kill them and they're still going to die.
Well, no, they're going to die in your world, but the system knows that you're the kind of person that would kill for that. And then so this is the other part, brings me to the next part that really surprised me, because I was born in Russia. And in Russia, even though there was always also religious undertones, the time in which I was born, which was very much Soviet Union, it was a very religiously flat society. So there was some religious people, but really it was very like the idea of Jesus it doesn't exist in the culture so much, right? In America, even if you're not religious or even if you hate religion, you're still in some relationship to Jesus. That concept is still kind of somewhere in your head, right? The motif of Jesus didn't even exist in me. Like, I'm not like, I know the stories, but that's not a thing that is in my hard drive because I wasn't born in a place where this mattered. So what was really surprising is that then they showed me that Jesus is real. I saw Jesus, and not like a, you mean like they showed you like what Jesus represents. No, 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 no. Jesus, just like Jesus. He's real. All of that happened. And he ascended, and I saw him ascending, almost like finishing his contract with whatever layer this was. And before he gets to finish his contract, there's certain things that need to be aligned. And it has to do with karma. And what I saw is that what karma is that you have a certain arrangement of, I guess, what you would call good and evil, but they're just two different forces in existence. And they're not, you can't eliminate any part of any of them. They flow in everything. So the more you have only good that tries to like eradicate all the bad, you have a situation where you, by necessity, pushing all the certain amount of darkness over here, and it will now exist over here. So what the system is trying to do to be equitable and fair, it's trying to create a balance, like a yin-yang kind of situation, which is like a balanced thing, that everything is distributed evenly. So what happens is that there are checks and balances, but they have to do with just the nature of things. So it's more like karma. It's just your actions will determine what kind of energies you're going to exist more within, because that's almost like you're saying, that's the thing that makes sense to me. So if you're the kind of person that's going to be murdering, you're like, well, okay, then you belong right here. You're basically signaling to existence, that's where I belong in these kinds of experiences. And that's what's going to keep happening, right? The karmic cycle. So then that's why you definitely should think twice regardless whenever you do something that you know is unethical, right? But it was very surprising to me to see that, Jesus is a real thing. And if I have to make a guess, this was not expressed to me directly, but if I have to make a guess, what I understood is that the reasons that Jesus did what he was doing is essentially because we are such imperfect beings. One of the gods detached a piece of himself in his infinite love, and he said, you know what? I'm going to take the karma of the entire species on me, and I'm going to bear the consequences. The only currency you have to pay me is that you have to accept that this was gifted to you. And that is accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, basically. That's the token you pay. It's not that you are like submitting yourself, it's that you just acknowledge that this was done for you. Because there's something about being grateful that is much deeper than just the way that we use the word. But basically, that's the function that Jesus played, which is like bearing the weight of the human karma. And now that we're getting to a stage where we are capable of understanding certain things, and therefore we're capable of taking certain responsibilities upon ourselves, the system changes to now we will be the Jesus together. We can't be perfect individually yet, but we can distribute the responsibility. So together we can play the role of like Christ consciousness. And then Jesus gets to just finish his contract, and we get to now step up as a civilization to be Christ-like. Now, if it does not happen, and you get to a certain place where the civilization is evolved enough, let's say in technological terms, which we are, but somehow keeps being spiritually retarded, like can't bring itself to the level of wisdom that is required to follow up with the level of technology, then there's some assessments that needs to be made, because the way the simulation works is that there's many, many, many layers, and the governing layers above us, they have to carry the responsibility of the decision of what to do with that situation. One of the ways that they kind of found to deal with it, which is gentle resets, which is what, this whole theory that, there's like advanced civilizations, it kind of resets, and then it resets again until we figure it out. Like, okay, gentle resets. But at a certain point, if they see that it's in principle, it's impossible to correct this because of whatever the civilization is. Turning off the simulation is an option. It's possible, right? So it's almost like, but from what I saw, and this is I guess the good news, is that we were given this next chance. We were given, okay, to continue. You're like, you're a little bit on parole, but continue. Let's watch. And what we have to prove is that we're capable of bringing the kind of wisdom required, which has to do with leaning way more towards love, way less towards, all the very selfish kind of me kind of stuff. Not in terms of some children's story, ethical story, but more like that is a necessity to survive in the infinite space. Because if you're going to enter a space where infinite energy and computation is available, then the only real value is the kind of energy you carry or the vibe you're bringing to the picture. If right now we live in a world, a simple way to illustrate it, if right now we live in a world in which there's literally no scarcity whatsoever, like you can go get whatever you want, no matter who you are, everything you want is right there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about not eating. Don't worry about not having a shelter. It's all there all the time. The only real value becomes how people feel when you leave the room. Do they want you to come back? Or do they go, thank God, That is the only actual value. So how we are is much more valuable to the ultimate system than the kinds of things we can build. Or now it's part of it because you're going to get to take responsibility for your own environment and all of that stuff, but it's a secondary story to what kind of vibe you bring to the ultimate system, so to speak. And yeah, so that was the thing that it really kind of blew my mind. I didn't expect to see that.
Damn, dude, you're going down in history, man. For me, I grew up a Catholic. I grew up in a Mexican neighborhood, and everybody was Catholic. I thought the whole world was Catholic because our holidays coincided to what we saw on TV. You know what I mean? Christmas, Halloween, all that. So I thought everybody was Catholic. I didn't. There was a Jehovah's Witness in my class. We thought like, oh, what's up with that? And and a couple Protestants, but they go, yeah, but they believe in Jesus. So it was a weird thing. But then at 11, I found out there was more religions. There was, I'm like, how many Jews are there? How many, what's Islam? Like, how many Muslims are there? There's Hindu. Oh my God, how do we know we're right? So at 11 and 12, I was like, okay, I didn't know there was all these religions. How do we know Catholicism is the right way? So I became an atheist, hardcore atheist, started playing drums in bands. It started playing, like shitty Slayer music, speed metal, we'll write about Satan and shit in songs, like Slayer. And then when I was 21, I'm in Hollywood, moved to Hollywood, and me and my friend, we had long hair, we're rockers and shit. We're walking down Sunset Boulevard, and he was about like 20 feet behind me, and we were going to the Rainbow, and I was walking by the Roxy with Famous Club, and there was like a super dirty, homeless, long-haired hippie dude playing guitar, and he had a sign like "Save the Amazon" and like all these stats with how many trees get cut down every day, and the Amazon it's the lungs of the earth and all this shit. So he's playing guitar, and I'm walking by, and I just spent 30 minutes blow drying my hair, trying to look, plucking my eyebrows and shit, trying to get girls. And I looked over at him as I was walking by, and my thought was, man, the guy has long hair. Shit, all he's got to do is just wash it and dress nice, and he can get some pussy. That's like an instant thought. That was like my instant thought. And he just stopped playing, and he walked up to me, and he said, hey, if I guess your birthday, will you sit here and listen to me? I said, what? I go, okay. And he said, May 15th. And I'm like, God damn, what? I'm like, what? So I got my friend John and go, John, come here. Guess his birthday. And he looked at me and he said, March 31st. And I was like, what the fuck? He was talking about the rainforest and all shit. I wasn't listening to anything. I was just going, how the fuck did he do that? The odds that he'd get both of our birthdays right, first guess, it's astronomical. So from that point on, I was like, okay, there's some other shit. Because at that point, I was atheist. When you die, you're just in the dirt, and there's no God, and there's no other dimensions or whatever. There's no heaven, there's no hell. So at that point, my 20s, now I'm like, damn, there's something, but I just wasn't sure. And then by the time I got to the DMT experience, I was like, and then I did mushrooms. I was like, okay, there's a God, there's a creator, there's some intelligent shit going on. Yes. Okay. Then, the Big Bang Theory just retarded to me at that point, but still, I'm like, okay, there's a God, but Jesus was hard. Jesus was hard for me to get a grasp. My best friend, James, had cancer, was in a coma, almost died. He was so close to death. He came out of it, and he was in the same boat as me as far as spirituality. We were like atheists writing, satanic Slayer songs and shit. And then when he came out of the coma and he survived, and he just became super Christian, super Jesus. And I was always like, damn, And I have a lot of friends that are really into Jesus, where they're so Jesus is Lord, Christ is King, all that. And I'm like, I want to believe it. I could believe that he existed, because atheist historians acknowledge that he existed. And Jews don't like Jesus. They could easily say, hey, he didn't even exist. You guys are retarded. He didn't even exist. They don't say that. They go, yeah, he existed, but he was no God. He was just a man, So he did exist, and the crucifixion was that really happened. There's tons of documents and historians and all that happened, but him rising from the dead and the resurrection, that's always been super, super hard for me to believe in. But then Mel Gibson and Joe Rogan on Joe Rogan's podcast, of all places, they're talking about the Shroud of Turin. And for me, the Shroud of Turin was in the 1988, they did carbon dating on it. The Shroud of Turin is the cloth that supposedly Jesus was buried in, and they left an image that, people thought was real. Like, this is proof that Jesus did resurrect. Look, it left an image, or whatever. And but in 1988, they did carbon dating on it, and then the carbon dating said, no, it's not 2,000 years old. It's actually 700 years old. So in the 80s, all the newspapers just said the shroud is a fake. Mainstream media, the shroud is a fake. Everybody, the shroud. And at that point in the 80s, that's when I was in my atheist phase. So I was like, I told you, look, they proved the shroud is a fake, carbon dating. So I never really thought about the shroud. To me, the shroud, that fake thing from the 80s. And then Mel Gibson and Joe Rogan are talking about it like it's real. And I'm like, fuck, Joe Rogan talking about it? Like, we never talk about the shroud. But it seemed like there was a lot more to it than I ever knew. So I got, I went balls deep in it. And there's the documentary that everyone should see. It's not a documentary. It's actually just a podcast with a guy named Dr. John Campbell. He took a lot of heat for not going along with the COVID narrative during the scamdemic. So his name is Dr. John Campbell. Just put Dr. John Campbell, the Shroud of Turin. Watch his video on it, man. It'll blow you the fuck away. I watched that, and then from that point on, there's so many videos on the Shroud, and it's the most studied artifact in history. Every kind of scientist has fucking looked into it. Nuclear engineers, particle physicists, forensics experts. Nobody has any idea how that image got on that linen cloth. No one has any idea. There's no paint, there's no dyes, no one painted it. It's like a negative image on a non-photographic material. It's linen. No one has any explanation. Some people believe in it, some people don't. The people that don't believe in it, they'll say, just because none of these scientists could figure out how they faked it, doesn't mean it's real, which is a valid point. And then on the other side, people say, look, no scientist on earth has ever been able to figure out how they faked it, so it must be real. I'm on that side. I believe in it, man. I believe I'm good. I'm good now. All I needed was proof of the resurrection. And when you really look into the Shroud of Turin, that's the receipt right there. So, but anyways, 2 weeks before that, trying to find Jesus. I got friends that are, Zach Moore, he's like fully into Jesus. Anthony Graffio, he's all Jesus is king. And I want to, but it was just hard for me. It was hard for me. And Logan, at one of my black belts at the gym, he's a Bible expert. He's all into Jesus. He goes, you just got to ask him to show you, give you a sign. So after class one day, after we train, I teach, we clean up the gym, scrub the toilets, then we do karaoke at the gym, and then I drive home. It's like 12:30. I'm driving up to 405. I said, Jesus, I want to believe, but give me a sign. Give me a sign. A minute later,
I'm driving. You know when you're driving down the freeway at night, the oncoming traffic with their headlights, it's blinding. You don't really notice how blinding it is, but it's blinding enough that if there was a car just sitting in the middle of the freeway with its lights off, you wouldn't see it. You'd run right the fuck into it. You wouldn't see it. You'd slam on your brakes, but it would be too late. That's a fucking fact. And I asked Jesus to give me a sign, and I'm driving in the slow lane. I always drive in the slow lane. I'm not trying to get pulled over or anything. And within a minute, 2 lanes over, there's a car turned around, just got in a wreck. There's 2 cars turned around, 2 lanes over, and the other one that's a little bit further down, just a split second further down, is turned around, both with their lights off. They just slammed into each other somehow. And I'm just driving, and literally I'm driving like this. I'm like this. I'm like, oh shit, oh fuck. And I look in the rearview mirror. I'm like, holy shit. There's people on the side already, on their phone calling 9. I didn't even stop. I was like, fuck. Someone's calling 911. I'm like, I was just driving over the hill on the 405 going, what the fuck? But still, I was like, that had to be the sign, but maybe it was just a coincidence, but taking a deep dive into the Shroud of Turin, that's what really sealed it for me, man. Jesus really is Lord.
It's interesting how symbolic it was that they were without lights. That's what happens when you're driving without the lights.
Yeah, otherwise you'd be able to see them.
Yeah, but I mean in terms of like religious terms, like the lights are not on. So that's what happens, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
crazy shit.
But so it's interesting because to me, I guess my impression so far from now talking to a lot of spiritual and religious people, it seems that there's some people that are capable of just feeling Jesus or feeling God in their body.
They don't need the shroud. There's a lot of guys out there go, I don't even look at the shroud.
They go in their bodies. Exactly.
They don't need it.
Yeah.
I needed it.
And I would say that is also an important thing to point out because very often people fall into the overly evangelizing trap as well. So it's not so much about just believing in Jesus, but like, can you feel why that force is important? Can you understand why being Christ-like is important? Do you understand why these things, like, do you really understand it in your body? Because that's the mature species that is trying to emerge, not the somebody told me it's wrong kind of individuals, but I know to my bones why it's wrong. I don't need an idea to know why it's wrong, right? I know why it's wrong. I feel it in my body. When something and the more we get into that space, the easier it will become to do a lot of things. Communication, collaboration, starting to really shift the attention from the incentives that are currently not really serving anything. Terence McKenna was famously, I don't know if he was quoting somebody else, but he was famously saying, if we could feel what we're doing to the planet in our bodies, we would never be doing it. It's that there's this separation layer of like, you don't actually feel what you're doing. Forgive them, Father, they do not know what they're doing, right? Yes. And that is exactly what is trying to emerge, which is your vehicle. I like in Vipassana specifically, in the type of meditation called Vipassana, the focus is fully on the body, which is like this is your reality, that's the vehicle, that's why you focus on. You just experience everything through the body. And there's something very profound about that, because through the body you can slowly expand the layers and understand how we feel it as a vibe in other people, but that's pretty much as far as it goes. And we would never really think about it too much. But there's something about an unethical behavior that if you really pay close attention, really doesn't feel good in your own body. You really have to drown a lot of things. You have to push a lot of things down to override that. And there are some psychopaths that are just like, they just don't care. Like they sometimes even derive pleasure from other people's pain. But that's rare. For the most part, if people are doing certain things, it's because they eliminated their own ability to notice or to feel it, right? There's something, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, if you have an opportunity to help another human being, it feels good, right? If somebody falls down on the street, you don't know them, whatever. But if you run up and you're like, "Hey, can I help you?" I had this one case. I was in LA. I was driving, and there was this guy, really heavy set guy, and he just fell over. And because he was so heavy, they fall hard. Like he just went like it's a different thing. It's not like a regular person falling. And I saw that, I was like, oh my God, like it looked terrible. So then I stopped real quick. I ran out and I was like helping him get up, and there was a look on his face of thank you. And it was like, you're just helping a guy up, but like there's this connection in that instance of like, oh my God, thank you. And that feels so good in the body. It's like it's almost selfish to do it because it feels so good in your body, right? So, and the opposite is true. Like if you're doing something, you're like, they're not gonna find out, and you just do something that benefits you. There's if you pay close attention, there's something that happens there that feels like dissonance. It's like like it's no. You can say whatever you want. The Holy Spirit, your conscience. It doesn't matter what you call it. There's definitely a feeling of like dissonance, and the more you do that, the more of these instances of dissonance kind of accumulate, and by the time that you're ready to pass on, this line of dominoes of this particular frequency, that's the thing, that's where you're going to find yourself in, because it matches that kind of a frequency. And I think that accepting Jesus is one mechanism by which you bring more attention towards the channel that kind of leads you towards more of the positive, like these little moments of positive, right? But I'm not so sure that just accepting Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior without changing anything inside would do much. Like it's clear to me that if somebody is like living a super ethical life but never heard of Jesus, that doesn't matter. That person obviously is gonna get the benefits, right? Because they're just automatically doing the good. So I think that that's also an important thing to not lose. But I will say this: I've recently changed my position on Christianity as a whole, because what I saw is that there are cases like the one that we're in now, where maybe if given enough time, humanity might get its shit together, in a more, I guess, organic way, like just kind of like arrive at that conclusion or understand what's correct, whatever. But I've now noticing that there are moments in history in which sometimes the course correction that is required is of a sharp turn. It's like you got to fix it now, and in that case, you might need to leverage the power that Christianity holds, which is that not everybody are going to go and start exploring psychedelics. Not everybody are going to go and start doing meditation for 20 years to discover certain things about their truth, about their experience. Most people just want to go to work, buy a car, meet some friends. That's the majority of people, at least in the Western world. So for these people, for the majority of the population, Christianity is a pretty good tool at just getting you in the ballpark of right? It's kind of like, hey, let's all agree together as a community that certain things we don't do. How about that? Forget about right now why. If you're interested, you can get into more contemplative thought, explore, whatever. But for now, these rules will give you a much higher statistical situation. Like you're going to be standing on a much better ground. So I used to think, just like probably you for a long time, Christianity is actually a force for evil. They're like, look at all the wars. Well, the memes, right? It's like, look at all the wars that was started because of religion, all that stuff, right? And I've recently saw a thing that blew my mind. I don't know if you know, but Hayyan Hirsi Ali, she's this woman from originally from Somalia, but she lives in the Netherlands. And she has a crazy life story. She was born into a Muslim community, and she was deeply abused, clerectomy, all of that stuff, like whatever they're doing to young women in Somalia. And she escaped that world, and she became a very successful woman. She became part of the Dutch parliament, very smart woman. And for a long time, she was part of kind of like that group of like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, that whole kind of like very, very much against modern religion. And she was squarely in that camp. She was, going places and doing lectures against like the evils of Christianity and all of that stuff. And recently, I'll send you that talk. It's kind of crazy. And I don't know how much impact it would have on you because you don't know who she is. So all you know is what you're going to see there. But for all intents and purposes, imagine that she was very militant against, all the religious stuff, and super smart woman. And all of a sudden, I see her on stage with Richard Dawkins, and he's doing his regular spiel against religion. And all of a sudden, she opens her mouth and she goes, Richard, I see you as a mentor of mine almost, because I've learned so much from you throughout my life. And I have deep respect for science and everything that we made in modern civilization. But something happened to me last year. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know the exact story, but she said, after what I've experienced, I can no longer hold this position, and I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior.
Whoa.
And she said, I know we're not going to resolve it here tonight. I'll send you that clip. It's wild.
Send it to me. I want to see it for sure.
And she goes, we're not going to resolve it here tonight. I'm obviously paraphrasing. But she said, but there's a lot of wisdom in that book that I have overlooked because my attitude was from a completely different place. But I cannot shake off what I've experienced. And that, I think, is the key, the experience of it. It's that you have to feel it in your body. I have a good friend, Michael, who's from London originally, but lives in LA. And he always told me he was a Christian since he was a little kid. He was also born into a Muslim community. And then he told me all these wild stories that I obviously never believed him, obviously. He's a super nice guy, but I never believed him. But he basically said there was a case where he was in this mosque. I never know how to pronounce that word properly. But basically, he said literally physically, I renounced my Islam, basically. Like I said, I'm no longer, and he was a kid. He was like, I know, because I saw, like, Jesus came to me and he said, and I renounced Islam on the spot. And obviously, in the Islamic tradition, that's technically should be punished by death. So then obviously, I don't know if they were going to kill him, but like they definitely came to be violent towards him as a kid. That's what he was telling me. And they raised their hands. He said they raised their hands at me and they couldn't. And I said, what does that mean? He said, I don't know. They couldn't. They literally just were like, they could not. There was like a protective bubble. I was just standing there and they could not come near me. And I said, come on, Michael. Like, what does that mean? And he's like, I'm just telling you how it happened. And ever since that day, when he was like 6 or 7 years old, I should probably ask him again. But he said, I basically, that's it. And I felt Jesus with me every day since. And when he was telling me this stuff, obviously, again, we're really good friends. Like, we're always super respectful, very, very positive relationship. But I never accepted anything he was telling me. And now that I'm thinking about it, I was like, well, it's possible that certain people just have that openness. There's a connection in them that they can literally feel it in their body, and you can't shake that off. If you know, it's in your body. Knowledge is in your body. Even Kelsey told me she's not religious, and she grew up also Catholic. And in Catholicism, there's a lot of emphasis on this guilt, which really traumatizes people, and I see it. But she said, but till this day, she knows the difference. Like she said, there's a very unique feeling if she prays. She feels God. And she said, and I said, but how do you know it's not just something else? Like, how do you know it's God? And she said, I don't know how to explain it. I just know. It's different. It's a different feeling. I just know what it is. So I think that's these channels, I think I think it is true that Jesus is always trying to come in, so to speak, but we have to welcome, like we have to open the shrine. We have to open the body to say, okay, like it has to happen from the inside. Jesus can't just like barge in, so to speak.
Yeah. Danny.
Yeah.
How could my people reach you? What's your YouTube?
Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts.
Dango Thoughts on YouTube and just Danny Goler on Instagram, correct?
And TikTok, yeah. And
DANNYGOLER. That's Instagram.
Correct. And then codeofreality.com is our website.
Danny, you're a prophet, man. You're going down in history, and this is some world history shit going on right here, man. It was I know we already met, but you know me, I'm like I barely remember my students at my gym. But I'll never forget you now, dog. I'll never forget you. I was wondering how long we were going to go. I'm driving over here, and I'm like, man, I mean, how long are we going to go? I mean, how long can we talk about this red light and the code? I mean, this might be a 15-minute podcast. Like, seriously, because I've watched a bunch of videos. I'm watching videos on the way up here. I didn't know. I'm like, we went 2 hours. This was one of my favorite podcasts. This might be the best podcast ever, man. Just based on your story, that whole story. I think, now let me ask you something real quick. If you didn't go homeless, if you didn't get rid of all your stuff, would you have still got on that plane and met your wife?
I have no idea. But I think it's, you can't know that kind of stuff. But I think I would have, because I already had the ticket.
Oh, before you went homeless, you already had the ticket.
Yeah, but maybe we would never have spoken.
Okay. I was just curious. It's such an amazing story, man. And you're changing the world, man. That nobody would have figured that shit out. The code. You have to be on DMT now here's another question. Is there any other kind of red light where like you could get like the same effect with a big square, like a big red giant square, or does it have to be like a pinpoint type thing?
No, not pinpoint. It has to be diffracted. So it has to be like a band or an X. And we're working right now to try and make it bigger, but a laser pointer is not going to work.
A laser pointer does not work. It's not a laser pointer.
No, it's a laser pointer with a special lens on top that diffracts it. So there's something about that particular kind of scattering, that does that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and we know it works with mushrooms. We know it works with ayahuasca. I had a shaman in Costa Rica that tried it, and we know as of a week ago that it also works with 5-MeO DMT. I had another shaman from New Jersey, actually, which is an oxymoron, but he tried it with 5-MeO, and he said he could see the code.
It's a beautiful thing, Danny. Thank you very much for taking this time, and we'll talk again soon.
Much love, Eddie. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, man.
See ya.
For all your 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu merchandise, please visit 10thplanetjj.com/shop. We also got a Look Into It t-shirt that just dropped. Thank you very much for your support.
The Jiu-Jitsu Dojo is the ultimate training ground for life. Jiu-Jitsu will accelerate the evolution of your being, your consciousness, your soul. Through this amazing art, you will prove to yourself that you can master anything you set your mind to.
Happy birthday, Eddie Bravo!
I leave for Brazil tomorrow. Are you the Fear Factor guy? I'm like 6 pounds over. Time to sweat it out. Just imagine someone that has no idea how different your game is.
I'll tell you what this weekend was, man. It was a culmination point where all your hard work comes to like one great moment in time. You showed that you're a fucking champion, guy who goes against convention. You created your own shit and figured interesting ways to get around problems in jiu-jitsu. It shows you that great things are possible if you work hard, if you dedicate yourself, and you use your creativity, and you push through. Your own human potential just goes up.
My 10th Planet Association has grown rapidly to over 70 academies worldwide, and their curriculums are all synced to 10th Planet headquarters located in downtown Los Angeles. I'm Eddie Bravo. I hope to see you on the mats.